Part of it, I did a lot of photography earlier on in my career. And so I think I have that photographer mind where when I see something, I frame it up a little bit and think about how could that be cropped to fill a canvas in a way that appeals to me. As far as the themes go, I mean, sometimes it's something as simple as a color combination I like, or I see an image of, one of the icons I love to paint, and there's something about that. I don't want to say that I want to improve upon, but looking at it, it gives me another idea. So often the portraits I do, I look at the photo. I almost always start with a black and white photo. I sort of try to add my own touch to it. And I love the process of colorizing an image, because I honestly don't know what the person was wearing or what their coloring may have been in the original photo. And so I like having free reign to just do whatever I want. I guess I'm deciding more on the colors myself. Every once in a while I'll do a sketch, but often when I see the photo, I think that would look great with a hot pink background or a really rich blue. And then from there I begin to work with maybe the skin tones, and I work on the shadow areas. Sometimes I'll go with a very stark, let me just make the whole shadow area black. And then other times I maybe use a darker brown or another color. So, I think each photo I work with sort of gives me almost like a fresh start. Some of them may look similar, with my approach. But, when I catch a new image that I've never seen, it almost always sort of sparks a little bit of a different direction with the portrait. I think pop culture has just been a part of me forever. Where growing up, I lived off TV. That was my escape from the world around me, I have to say. And, I sort of buried myself in that and music. So growing up, the radio, back in the days when we listened to regular radio, those were my friends. That was my area of influence, or I'd say, they influenced me. I think ever since I was a kid, I always liked doing art, but I never really knew what I would do with it. And so, looking back, I think I just absorbed so many of the images and the color palettes. And now, I feel a strong sense of nostalgia in all my work. I think that these photos, give me that chance to do that. And honestly, it's weird. I started using the square format, in the last few years, and I'm tracing it back to all those album covers, with a record, because you just sit there, you get the record, you're listening to it, and you're staring at the square format. And I think that sort of influenced the way I look at images. How would this look as a record cover? I can't say I liked my childhood. I don't think I want to go back to my childhood, but I definitely feel the influence of. Let's put it that way. I mean, those were the more enjoyable aspects of childhood for me. So those were the high points. And I feel like, okay, I can transport them to now, but I definitely don't want to transport back to that. It's interesting because I recently did an exhibit called Raised by TV. And that was, all these pop icons on television. And as I was putting together the concept, it was just flowing. But until I had to write the artist statement for it, I really hadn't dug into it very much. And as I was digging in, I started to realize how each of these people, on TV, it raised me. What did I learn from them? And, shows like the Brady Bunch. It's just like, you look at those parents and you kind of laugh at them, but at the same time, you kind of wish you'd had them. And so I think a lot of, I don't know if I can say my core values, but, a lot of my beliefs I trace back to these individuals. you know, and, you know, I remember watching That Girl and I thought, gosh, she's whack, but just does whatever she wants, you know, and it doesn't always work beautifully, but it always ends up being okay. So I think, you know, there's some element of that. You know, the other shows I watched, you know, there are a lot of strong female characters, so I don't know if it's a cry for a mom figure or what, but that, I guess that all played into it. But as I was writing the statement for that, it made me really pause and think how much I was influenced by TV as a kid. And I want to say how much it gave me, because I do feel like I learned a lot of important things from it. I think definitely I started it as a concept, and then as I worked through it and thought more about it, I think it got stronger as a grouping, because I sort of pushed myself to remember, well, what else? Who else on TV? What impact did that have? You know, Edith Bunker, although that show in itself was kind of cutting edge at the time and touched on a lot of themes that, you know, I honestly can say I thought we'd be in a very different world now by touching on all those themes then, but I guess we're not. But, you know, Edith Bunker was my grandmother on my dad's side. And my grandfather on that side was Archie Bunker. And so it's just, they're weird connects. And I remember even as a kid looking at the TV and thinking, do they know that's them?
Right. Now, if we look at it now, it's so extreme, right?
Yeah, yeah. I'm going to trace it back to photography. And it's interesting, in that first group of paintings I did, one of them was a giant can of frijoles negros. And somebody joked, oh, that's you're the Mexican Warhol. You know, and I'm like, what? You know, and it was one of those things where I can honestly say I just painted it because I loved the design on the can.
Yeah.
And, you know, at that point, yeah, the designs were still a little bit retro and not as updated. But that retro style, and most of the artwork that I continue to paint like that of products is of products that really haven't changed their design. So it does harken back to this nostalgia. And when you look at them, I think those paintings kind of look almost like product photography. So there I go back to the photography again. I like elevating the images. I think a lot of times, you know, when we're shopping, you know, we just buy the brands we like or whatever, and sometimes we don't even think about the artwork or the design of the packaging. And some of these products just have what I think is brilliant packaging. You know, taking those images and blowing them up, it makes people stop and think and maybe appreciate them. I also like, I guess, the taking something that's so simple, elevating it to something bigger.
I think there's a design series on Netflix about the Instagram logo. The guy who came up and worked with a team of people, not just one person, but a team of people over a course of months to come up with that square label. You're right. Like, there are lots and lots of people that make decisions about the things that you see every single day that kind of just become part of your life that you don't even realize. I mean, as a child, no one ever told me that that's a job I could have or something I could do as an adult, you know, that I could design things.
I think we take those things for granted because we just see them wherever we go, and they just are. And so we maybe don't always think about how they got there or what the process was. So I don't know. I mean, some of these designs are so iconic. I don't know if they went through the same rigorous testing. I'm sure the updated versions of them have been, you know, put before panels and test groups and all that. But I think these classics, they just really catch my attention. The machos was, you know, the luchadors, you know, these guys like that. You know, any of the tough guy stuff went under machos. But this actually was, you know, basically retro wallpaper was the unofficial name of it.
Yeah.
And for me, all these are my friends. These are guys I know that are friends of mine. And, probably some of them date back to probably the early 2000s. I just took portraits of them because I thought they looked cool. And the goal was never to paint them or anything. I just wanted to photograph them. And all these images, as time went on, it's like, these are kind of cool. The guys liked the pictures. Some of the guys were musicians and doing hip hop, and they would take them to use to promote themselves for shows and things like that. But I was at the Visionary Museum, and they had a book that was called, I think it was like 1950s wallpaper design.
Okay.
And it was $2. It was a clearance. And I looked at it and it's like, oh my God, these designs are amazing. And I was thinking, how could I incorporate these into my artwork? And then I started thinking, well, these guys, most of them have tattoos all over them. And often when somebody has tattoos, people jump to conclusions and sort of judge who they think the person might be. And I wanted to level the playground on this a bit. And so what I did was I made the decision, I'll paint them without any of the tattoos and let these designs sort of lay over top of them like the tattoos or the, body art, body modification.
Yeah.
And I wanted them to be, pulled into sort of another world. And most of these have got a very, solid, bold background color. And then the design goes behind them and in front of them and envelops them a little bit.
It's so funny because once you make art and you put it out there, I am often, this does connect with what you're saying. I'm often worried about like putting out too much about what I'm thinking about, because it's so funny because like you're talking about it, but when I see the series, like my response to it is completely different. And it's very like sort of a balance of like male and female, because I think of like flowers that, me with my art, like I respond very much to plants and things. And so it's interesting how when you put your baby, like your art, your baby out there, it's in the world, and people will respond to it in so many different ways. People will respond to one thing because whatever, it has nothing to do with you anymore. It's kind of like having kids, you're putting kids out there and
they get their own personalities.
They have their own thing. And so interesting because I see such a balance in that, because the man is so tough and tough looking, and then he's juxtaposed with just these very soft petaled flowers, and they're all like around him. And it's interesting because I do kind of, a little part of me goes tattoo, but it's not a tattoo, you don't see one, but I do see a balance. It's such a strong balance of like male female to me. So that was my take on it. Isn't that interesting? It's totally probably different than what you thought.
That's actually kind of part 2 of this as well.
Okay, good.
I definitely wanted to juxtapose them against something, that was a contrast. An exhibit I did was called Delicate Violent. And that's where I sort of started this, where I was putting these delicate designs over individuals that looked a little bit more, aggressive. And that exhibit was featuring mostly hip hop guys, and there was a lot more posturing. Some of them had weapons, and a little bit more intense. So Delicate Violent, really the goal was to offset one with the other, and maybe adding a decorative touch was not what you would expect, with a person like that. And then it sort of has morphed into these designs that are really more of an exploration of that. And it's interesting because some of the guys are like, man, why didn't you use blue? Why'd you use pink? I was like, don't worry, you're tough enough. Don't worry. But there is that that element, and sometimes the tougher the guy, the softer the treatment with flowers or design, and sort of push that.
Yeah, I see that. I when I see that, I feel like, yeah, you're like, because I grew up in a Latino home, and we have the guys do this, and like there's very strict sort of gender roles in the Latino community. Growing up in that community. So I feel like it's definitely, I can see how a guy would be like, why did you put that color there? And they care very much about that, So.
Well, yeah, there is that. And, the other thing that I really, when I was doing my immigration paintings and telling stories of individuals that had, crossed the border to come here, most of them, to work, I really embraced the concept of elevating the subject matter, and those guys and some of these guys as well. I'm not going to say they're marginalized. Maybe at times they have been, but I can confidently say I think they're often overlooked. All the guys I work with, not only do they look cool, but there's something about them that's very humble. And, anybody that wants to do a portrait like this with me, I probably wouldn't want to work with. That makes sense?
I got it. Yeah.
Yeah, I was, paint me like that.
Yeah.
Not. but I'm usually looking for somebody that's a little bit more low key, and then all of a sudden you turn on the lights and you see this person's got, an amazing, face or expression that just comes out under studio lights. And a lot of the guys I've worked with have been like, man, I look like I'm famous, or I look like I'm somebody. The first time I heard that, I felt so good about what I was doing. And especially the immigration stories, because, I was almost doing them like retablos, where, you put the picture and then there's like a written story that we're painting. And each of these stories, I probably had about 25. It was called Viajeros. I took all the different stories and found ways to capture something about it, the story that was shared with me in the art, but not in an obvious way. One of the photos, I've got the guy, and he's just got his eyes closed and his head back, and it's all in yellows. And if you were to look at the painting, your first thought might be, oh, it looks like he's sunning himself on the beach, but part of his story coming here was about, being stranded in the desert. And, his fear, like, some of the people died coming with him in his group from his hometown in El Salvador. And, he said that every time he closed his eyes, all he could do was picture them. And so when you have a story like that accompanies something like that, and you see the subject with their eyes closed, you kind of get goosebumps because it catches you by surprise. You didn't expect it. I had another guy. It's funny, I was just talking about this other guy because I used his image again for the exhibit I have, at the Art Factory. His name is Borrego, the sheep, and it was sort of like his nickname. But he had a big tattoo on his stomach that said that. And when I photographed him, I got a picture of him like this, and it was kind of funny, But when he told me his story, he had told me about how the coyote had sold him and his entire group that he was traveling with to another coyote for, just to ditch him. And that I knew a lot about the coyotes because, I read a lot of books about that and heard people tell me, but I'd never heard of people being sold off to other coyotes. And it just, I always knew that they charged a lot and people paid a lot to come. But at that point, it just became so commercial and weird to me.
Wow. And
so for him, I changed his tattoo to vendido, sold. And I painted him in gold. So he kind of looked like, almost like a religious sort of, character or figure against a black background with that tattoo on his stomach saying sold. And people would just look at it and just look at him and think, ooh, wow, he looks really cool. He's a real, tough guy. And then you hear that story and it's like, whoa. And so, I think the work that means the most to me are those opportunities where I can elevate somebody, and kind of make them iconic. My respect for, the people I've worked with is so strong. To me, I hold them up like this, just like a lot of the other celebrities I've painted. And watching, I guess, their expressions, the look on their faces when they see themselves, that's reward.
What a powerful gift to give someone. As I'm listening to you, I think of you as like a community artist even too. Say you're engaging people in your art making, and how powerful that is.
It's interesting because I think when I first started working on the immigration series, I thought I would go more in that route. I was working in correctional facilities, bringing arts programs, to some of the jails, and we were working on murals, and some of them have gone up, in community centers. I did some murals with some local nonprofits as well. But the other stuff seems to have caught a little bit more traction. It's interesting when Black Lives Matters hit, I felt like I wanted to participate, and I think I felt at such a loss for, do I have the voice for that? And during those times, there's a part of me that almost regrets that I didn't create. I can honestly say I was so disappointed in the world at that point. Things had come to that I just didn't know where to start. And I also had so many other friends that were doing really great work at that time. So, I think sharing their images and supporting, giving them the likes, the thumbs up, I felt like that was the best thing. And I still look back and I think, gosh, I have lots of ideas, but I also felt like I don't know that I had enough of the perspective capture, what needed to be captured. And I felt like, this is not a time when somebody else should put the voice out there. Population that's struggled and had so many challenges that had been really brought to light at that moment. So I am just so happy and very proud of some of the artists I know that have been so prolific during this time period, and really sharing their voices and uniting. We often think of the pandemic as something that separated and isolated us. And although on some level it has, I see so many people that have found ways to connect and unite. The one painting I created was an American flag.
Love that.
Black stripes, and all the stars were falling. And I felt like that was all I could say. I think what I liked about that piece is I asked people that saw it, on Instagram and Facebook, to tell me what they saw. And that's something that I have to say, as a way of connecting, I'm very extroverted, and definitely I've been feeling cut off from the world. But at the same time, through social media with the art, asking people or engaging. I've done some little games. Can you guess what this painting is in this package that's going to Arizona? Things like that, I think have helped me stay connected and helped hopefully distract people from the harsh realities they're facing now.
I appreciate the narrative. I love when you posted that, this person got this painting and posted it and look what it looks like. Like, I feel like I'm part of your story. I think people want to be part of that. People want to be part of that, and they want to see what's going on behind the scenes.
Honestly, I felt like I was invading a lot of people's privacy with the concept. Not everybody wanted to participate, but I would sometimes get a photo back from somebody that bought the painting and say, look at it in my home, look what it looks like. And it just looked like it was meant to be there. So many people have been very generous, I think, with artists. A lot of people that have bought, over the past months have said, well, we want to support small businesses, and we want to support the arts because we know this is a tough time. And that, to me, meant so much. Friends with small businesses, and
Mhm.
they have had to get very creative. And when you have people around you wanting to buy your artwork or whatever it is you may be selling, and they want to do it because they believe in what you do, I feel like, well, and I believe in them because they're doing this, in my mind, what I feel are, all the right reasons. They're choosing where they want to shop. They're acknowledging that almost all of them say, I'm so happy I'm working. I'm so happy I can do this now. So I want to give back by supporting the arts or eating at local restaurants or buying from small businesses. So that, I felt like that was a way to honor those people. Many of them I'll never meet.
You model that yourself. I mean, I've posted things in my Facebook, and to have you reposted, I've connected with some people whom you've shared my stuff with. So
Awesome.
I really feel like you model that.
Funny, I learned that from Miss Pixie. Miss Pixie is the store Pixie Windsor.
Mm-hmm.
When I met her probably 15 years ago, she bought some of my artwork, and a few weeks or months later, I saw some of the artwork she had bought for her home in her store for sale, and I thought, what? It was the same price, but
Okay.
it was, we started talking more, and she said, I appreciate it, I love it, but now I want somebody else to enjoy it. And when she opened her new store on 14th Street, at that very moment, I was thinking, gosh, I wonder if I could talk to her about taking some of my work there. And no sooner had I thought that, but maybe the next week, I got a call. Hey, this is Pixie Windsor. And I said, are you calling me to ask me about exhibiting my work? And she said, yeah. And I said, oh my God. But by working with her, she has always been so incredibly supportive of other businesses. I mean, businesses that some people may say are her competition. She is always 100% like, let's support everybody. Good goes out, good comes back. And I've seen it in her success, and it's been such a great business lesson for me. And beyond business, I mean, it's a great way to be an awesome human being. After all these years, I'm thrilled to still have my work there, and I definitely learned so much from her.
I just appreciate your openness so much. We have a friend in common, and I feel like she's like that too. Like, it's interesting, like we gravitate towards people that are like that. Because I learned from Rosie, who we have in common, you help your tribe, you help the people in your group, and you elevate everyone. So we all elevated. So that's interesting.
Now that she started doing she and her husband Jesus created a book, and it's like, oh, let me buy some. I'll find some kids. I'll give them some. I want my copy, but let's find some kids too.
Right.
Just seeing that, and being able to share that and let other people know about it.
Yeah.
It's so amazing, and I love, and I think you're doing this as well with them. I mean, it's almost like a think tank of creatives, and I think that's really important because marketing and selling your work is a bit of a challenge sometimes. And I was sort of joking with her, but I think it's sort of happening anyway. I just said, we should, for all of the businesses we're sort of working on and pushing, we should become our own little marketing group for each other. I've also worked in employment services and career planning, and I have to say, one of the saddest moments is when someone comes to me and doesn't know what they want to do or what they want to be. They say, well, what was your childhood dream? And let's work from there. If you say you want to be an astronaut, well, maybe you won't, but what is it about being an astronaut that caught your attention? Because I think that's a part of ourselves that never goes away completely. We may bury it. The world may say, no, you can't do that. You can't be that. But I think it's important to reflect back on that. You know, for me, it's interesting. My childhood dream was to be an artist, and it was to be an adult. You know, as a 5-year-old, I just wanted to be an adult. I don't know what I was thinking, but I look at my adult life and, geez, that's all I do: work, paint, and be a grown-up. I think that, you know, the creativity, everything I've done up until now wasn't always what you would call a traditional arts job, but I did find ways to use my creativity because that was so much a part of me. And so I strongly encourage people, you know, the world may tell you via lessons or people, no, you can't do that. No, you shouldn't do that. But if you don't do it, you're going to struggle to be, you know, to really feel like, okay, this is who I'm supposed to be. And so, you know, the arts, I mean, it's not just like I have to be an artist. I have to stand in a studio with my paintbrush, you know, and so many different ways to use your creativity. I hope that, you know, whatever it is that, you know, it is a part of your being, I hope that you look to involve that in whatever you do.
Love it.
So, and you, I mean, when you were first, you know, connecting and following, you started doing some block prints or something.
Yeah.
I saw your block print, it made me want to do a block print. You know, and then I see something you do and it's like, oh, yeah, I want to do that. And so, you know, I think definitely surrounding yourself with people that, they don't always have to be like-minded. They have to be, you know, going in a direction. You know, I mean, sometimes you get too many people like you and it's like, uh-oh. But, you know, I think it's interesting how creativity feeds on itself. I think too many artists feel like, oh, he sold a painting, and because he sold a painting, the client didn't buy one of mine. And that's really not the way it works. You know, somebody's not going to not buy your painting because they bought my painting, or vice versa. They're going to buy the painting they want. Maybe there are some people that come in and say, okay, I'm going to buy one painting today that costs X dollars and it's going to go in my living room. Maybe some people buy that way. But, you know, I love it when other artists let go of that and they sort of can, you know, it's like, hey, that's great. I mean, I was in an exhibit maybe 2 years ago where I was selling a competing artist's work. You know, the person that came in was looking at my work, oh, I like this, but it's too big. It's like, oh, you should go take a look at this person's work. Smaller scale, and here's some really cool ones. Here's my favorite. And the person bought it. So it's...
I think of it as it's like dating or music. You know, if it's not for you, it's not for you. It's like a tuning thing. You know, you've tuned your fork enough and that person, the right person is going to hear it. And if the other person doesn't hear that tune, it's not, there's nothing wrong with it. They're looking for something else.
It's a great thing to compare it to dating. It's either or it's not.
Oh, yeah. I have a lot of single friends. Like,
got a lot of divorced friends. Yeah.
I wanted to thank you, first of all, for taking your taking time to speak to me and share of yourself. You are the most open person. You are so incredibly genuine. You have a lot of wisdom, and I appreciate how fearless you are in your exploration and your sharing of yourself. And I love your ideas. I love the fact that you're not afraid to open up to your ideas and allow others to do the same. Like, I think you support other creative people and you inspire people by the way that you live and the way that you treat others and in your art. I'm very excited that we got a chance to have a conversation.
Honestly, it's interesting because I feel like I live with the two-dimensional version of you always through social media. And it's like, the conversation we've had is kind of exactly what I expected we would have if we ever had the chance.
Okay.
Does that make sense? Yeah.
Yes, but I'm not a small talker.
It's weird when the Chimaya Gallery in Los Angeles, I had some work. I've had some work out there a few times. They've recently closed, But the owner of the business, you know, I was looking at who exhibits there, and I'm like, oh my God, this is such an amazing group of artists. You know, I hope someday, you know, I can take my work there or be included with them. Because, you know, you know, Juan Solis, Jose Bravo, there were, you know, just George Yepes. They were artists that, like, I would see their work and I'm like, oh, I'm in awe.
Yeah.
And Cheech Marin did Chicano Visions a few years ago, and that exhibit sort of rocked my art world, just seeing so much of that, you know, the overload of color, the different representations of Latino culture, Chicano culture. And, you know, so that was sort of on my list of wow. And I came across their website, and I just sent a message with a few images. And the guy responded like that. And it was like, oh my God. And so, you know, I got to have some work out there. And it was interesting because he too was one of those individuals that was so generous with artists, but he didn't like something about you. Like from a, not like, you know, trivial, but like if you had like a crappy attitude or you were unprofessional or rude or things like that, you know, all the reasons somebody shouldn't like you, he just would never invite you back again. And so the group of artists there, like I went out there and I felt immediately, my God, I feel like I'm home. And, you know, just being able to have my work with these other artists and stand next to them in an opening reception, it was just an amazing experience. And, you know, again, the way they operate is kind of like Miss Pixie's, where it's just, they were community-based, focused on building people up and giving people a chance. And, you know knock on wood.
It goes to show, though, that, you know, being personable and being able to work with others is like, it's like huge. You know, people might think, oh, I'm really smart, I'm going to be successful. Like, smart is one thing, but if you don't know how to be around people, that's another whole story. Like, it's really important to be able to, and then another great lesson from this is, like, you sent an email. You know, you send an email to him and there you are. And I think, like, a lot of people, they have doubts, or they think, oh no, you know what, let me finish this first and maybe in a year I'll be ready. And like, they doubt themselves. And I think, you know, you really, I mean, acting, like putting that motion of doing something is probably the most important thing, you know, for anybody for success, is, you know, just like forward moving action, like doing something every day, no matter how small it is.
Definitely true. And, you know, I love your video channel. I'm gonna have to interview you sometime now.
Oh, yeah.
But, you know, I love the idea of bringing little, you know, these short art lessons to people. And I think it's, you know, first of all, a great way to share your talent. It's also a great way to sort of come up with what is your brand, you know, in the art world as you go beyond, you know, school education.
I think you never know what's going to happen.
Because I think, okay, you teach all day, you give everything you have all day, and then what do? You go home and you create more videos and teach again.
Well, that's what's going to eventually, you know, reach out further. You know, like, you have to always think of what your reach is. And I think if you want to be worldwide, or if you want to be countrywide, you have to get your head up a little. You know, I think you have to. So for me, it was beyond like the classroom. Like, I can be amazing here, right? But you have to figure out, like, what tools are out there that will help me. And all I think we're doing as artists is we're trying to be the best we can be. You know, we're trying to just be as 100% genuine as we can be, and just service. I mean, I really feel like what I do is just service. And I'm just like, my skills are a tool, you know, as a gift. You know, I see you doing that too. Like, it's a gift, you're giving it away. And like, you just want to work hard at your gift, and there's no way there's no success that's going to come out of that, because it's genuine. It's 100% you know, it's what you were given. So I really feel like that is such a great and powerful message. I really feel like there's no way you cannot have success from that, because you're just relentlessly working.
In the hard work, I think a lot of other artists I've spoken with sometimes feel frustrated. I mean, we're not going to sell everything we create. Our first years of creating, most likely we won't get what the artwork is worth, but I think it's, I've always like, let's keep it affordable enough so that people can buy it. And a lot of the clients I have, they'll say, this is the first time I've ever bought an actual piece of original art. Somebody that reached out to me today is like, well, is this a print? No, it's a real painting. And so, I try to look beyond how much time did I spend on this? How much is it worth? And focus on, let's get it out there and get the momentum going.
I could talk to you all night, my friend.
Well, we'll have to do that sometime.
Yes, definitely. Oh, this was so wonderful. Thank you so much. I feel very honored.
I definitely feel more focused on how to live up to all the wonderful things you've said.
Have a wonderful evening.
You too.
Yay.
Okay.
All right, my friend.
All right. Have a great evening.
You too.
Feliz noche. Nos vemos
Buenas
pronto.
noches a todos.